And I especially don't believe that women have anything to complain about whatsoever in America today.
Yeah, I'm gonna back you up big time on the
girl thing.
Women.
Yeah.
You can fucking cry those tears all you want. No, I don't believe it. It's much easier to be a woman than it is to be a man.
Of course it is.
Mostly
for a multitude of reasons. If I were a hot girl, oh my God, the things that I could accomplish.
But wait, it's like the Rick and Morty joke. Like, oh, he's not a hot girl. He can't just drop out of his life and set up shop in someone else's. Like, you can do that as an attractive woman. You can just quit life and outsource all responsibility.
You laugh, but it's true. And the interesting thing is this. Women who are successful, who are making a go of their lives, who are disciplined and aspirational and optimistic, who look good and work hard, they don't need feminism, because feminism is a philosophy for people who have lost at life, and most of the time they've lost at life through their own bad choices. I'm not some kind of like evil monster who doesn't believe in a safety net for people whose lives haven't worked out, as they were hoping. But feminism, as it has become, it's moved on from a philosophy about equality of opportunity and eliminating bias and sexism into, as I said earlier, sort of female chauvinism. And I don't,
But hold on,
it's almost gauche I've never understood the women's equality movement, because I don't understand why women want to step down to equality. Women already had all the power, and they continue to have all the power.
To play devil's advocate here, but I'm sorry to jump in, but
we're gonna fall out today, aren't we, man?
No, I'm too sexy.
I can tell you're the problem.
No, I can tell you're gonna like me.
No, I adore you.
If you're a girl who's not really succeeded in school, right? You're 25 pounds overweight, and you're trying to earn a living in this world. I think if you're a dude in that same situation, there is a career in masonry for you in which you can make real money, right? You can be a lumberjack. You can take these difficult but dangerous jobs as a guy that as girls are just closed off to you. I feel like as a guy,
are we in a production-based economy anymore?
I feel like you're inherently more valuable as a strong guy than as a weak girl
sexist.
If everything else is put to
dude, there's more valuable just by virtue of being a man. That's the kind
by
of
virtue of being
Had you heard of prostitution?
Okay, strong counter.
Find that kind of thing offensive. You shouldn't make that kind of generalization. Some people don't like that kind of thing.
Dude,
the fact is,
women suck at carrying shingles on the top of a roof, right? They're typically not good at it.
My girlfriend, I don't think I was aware of just how weak women are, because I don't get into the habit of like physically restraining them or
You should try it.
I don't know if any, not when they're really, but like I was massaging my girlfriend the other night. Her muscles were really sore from working out, and I was like, yeah, show me that. I was like, yeah, show me that muscle, and she's like, nothing. She's got nothing there. She's
like
really
a wrist
skinny.
all the way to her shoulder.
Yeah, she's really skinny, and I'm just like, I was tickling her, and I don't know, I got her in some half-assed jujitsu thing, and I've got all of her limbs controlled, but I've got a free arm, and I'm tickling her, and I'm like, she's screaming, no, stop, and I'm like, are you resisting right now? I was like, is that all you've got? She's like, yeah, I think I'm holding her wrists together with one hand. She's got nothing. Yeah,
it's because the reason that it freaks people out is like, I always wonder, like when I was tickling my girlfriend or whatever, when she like seems like she's genuinely freaking out, like she thinks I might not stop and she might suffocate, I would always think, oh, that's so silly and childish. But it's like if Brock Lesnar pinned me down and was tickling me, like I wouldn't have a moment of like, oh, Brock, you silly goose. It would be like, you gotta fucking stop, Brock, like you can kill me, like you gotta stop tickling me, buddy.
I'd have such an erection.
Oh, you only like black guys.
Stop!
The black thing isn't a hard and fast rule. In fact, my only hard and fast rule is hard and fast. So I don't have a specific rule on the black. No, look, if your argument about women not being equal in society is that they can't be lumberjacks, I think that women are pretty much good.
It sounds stupid.
Come on,
because it is stupid. I make it sound stupid.
Can I step in and just say, like, there's a perfect job for these slightly hefty dum-dums. It's called waitress. You get, I swear, that's it. That's what the servers.
But they're no good at it because they forget things and they get in a tizzy. And if you don't tip them enough, they get really pissed. Like women make terrible waitresses because they're so passive aggressive. I never want a female waitress.
The counter to what Kyle is saying is, I feel like if you're, if you're not being an engineer or a doctor or whatever, right? If you're in one of these other jobs, what women can do is a subset of what guys can do. And
No, that's
I don't know that we
ridiculous.
need to give them any
That's ridiculous. I'll tell you why it's
protections.
ridiculous.
Go on.
When you look at the professions that are male dominated and the professions that are female dominated, the professions that are female dominated don't require as much strength or intelligence, meaning that pretty much any woman can do them. And if you look at the academic professions, you can plot majors by gender versus IQ, right? And it's an awkward graph. No one really wants to talk about it. But you got up with the male-dominated majors like physics and philosophy and astrophysics. Totally male-dominated. All the STEM stuff is all the smart people, and it's all male-dominated. The other end, nursing and health and all that kind of stuff. Look, there are some exceptions here. Women dominate biology, for instance. Women dominate veterinary medicine, and those examples explode the claim that there is some kind of sexism in science. There isn't, because if you think there's sexism in physics, you have to explain why there isn't in biology. That's all nonsense. But the number of jobs that women can do is huge, and the number of jobs that women can do and be remunerated well for without having any particular skills or aptitudes is also huge. And of course, women have the option of not working at all, which most men don't. The reality is that women are systematically favored from primary school through high school, through college, into the workplace. And if you think that women have, some kind of disadvantage because they're not physically strong enough to be lumberjacks, I'll point you to, this thing called globalization. Like, nobody's really doing that in America anyway anymore. And in developing economies, the
it's
gender
unfair
splits
that you
in
pointed
most of
to
these.
lumberjacks, because there are plenty of people doing roofing and framing and masonry and.
What kind of a society wants women to be doing these jobs? We should be holding these beautiful angels on a pedestal. Like, what kind of fucked up society wants to send women to the front lines and have them?
And it's funny when you say that, but when you talk about career
what kind of a
options,
monster are you? Why do you want to send your wife up on a roof where she could die?
Equal opportunity monster.
Women don't dominate in these professions, not because they can't do it, but because they don't choose to, because they're dirty and they're dangerous and they're horrible. Look, there's no woman who is incapable of being a bin man, right? Of being a trash collector, you would say. No woman is incapable of being a trash collector, but there aren't any female trash
Kyle's
collectors.
girlfriend is totally incapable of being a trash collector.
She can't take my trash out.
But she can make
She's
a
not
little bit of
incapable.
money and
She's
live
not
with time.
incapable. She's unwilling, and that's perfectly fine, because I don't want to send women to do those jobs anyway. But what I would like at least is some acknowledgement of the fact that it is men who keep the world ticking over.
I feel like I've watched a lot of you, and you are very happy to acknowledge that there are actual differences between men and women when it works to your advantage, right? You'll say, hey, look, the reason that women aren't becoming computer programmers is that for whatever reason, women choose not to become computer programmers. It's not that we're shutting the door to them or not encouraging them to do that. And I can tell you, I coded for like 15 years. They are absolutely encouraged and supported, and they are special fucking snowflakes, even if they suck at their jobs. I promise you that's the truth.
So many
would even admit that if it's hard to be anything in that career, it's a white man.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about the hiring practices at Cisco and how
goodness gracious.
everyone there seemed like they were from fucking India.
I'd go like a decade without seeing a white guy's resume. Like,
you're like, no white guys want to work here?
Yeah.
What's interesting is we're constantly told that women are discriminated against in these kinds of professions. Actually, studies are coming out now showing very dramatic gender bias in the opposite direction. 2015 Cornell study shows
where
that
I was
women have
headed to, though,
advantage.
to finish my other point is
please.
you absolutely acknowledge that there are differences between men and women when it comes to things like going into engineering, but you don't seem to acknowledge that there's differences between men and women when it comes to being a bin collector.
No, I do, and it's why I don't want women on the front line. It's not just that I think it's ungentlemanly and horrible to expect women to do that, but they're also incapable of doing that. I completely accept that. I don't think that any woman is incapable of being a bin man, because I don't think being a bin man is some kind of terrible physical thing that people couldn't train for if they didn't want to. Like, any woman could get healthy and fit enough to do that in 3 months if she wanted to, if she needed a job badly enough, if she needed to feed her kids, right? and any woman who says otherwise is just lazy. But there are things that women can't do. Women can't be in combat units on the front line. Now, this is a huge thing that I'm going to be writing a lot about in January and February. Women are not well placed on the front line in combat units. Now, I've done a huge amount of research that I haven't published about this yet. If you even in the fire service, when they have to water down the entrance requirements just so women can pass, just so women can be what we're now obliged to call firefighters. The worst thing in the world is you wake up and there's a smell of smoke in your nostrils because your kitchen's on fire, and you think, oh my God, my life is over, and you think it can't get any worse. It can, because when the fire engine pulls up and two chicks get out, you think, fuck, well, that's my house gone.
All right, guys, we're on our own here.
It's like you're saying it in jest, but that's
like lost nails on the floor instead of carrying me out.
The U.S. military has made good steps towards that. If I understand what they've done recently, is they've taken the steps and they've taken the physical requirements and made them job-based instead of gender-based.
Well, yeah, but this is not a good thing, because what they're trying to do. So the interviews I've done suggest that the top brass in the military are their incentives and their priorities are set by civilian overlords who are generally like politically correct establishment politicians who set them objectives like equality, gender diversity, like gender split, all that kind of shit. Now, I'll tell you something. I can't give you too many details because this is quite a big scoop for me, and I'm going to publish it in a week or two. But there's a very well-known female. How can I say this without giving it away? There's a very well-known, very well-publicized female army officer who was famous because she passed what is widely regarded as the world's most difficult basic training. Except she didn't, because what happened was the instructors who timed her and failed her something like 8 times said, you know what, there's no point putting this woman through this. She cannot pass this test. The instructors were sent home, and the brigadiers came down from London, in a rare occasion in uniform, timed her themselves, and lo and behold, that day she passed. And what happens when you lower the requirement? You can fill in the blanks there yourself. Why was this done? Politics, not safety, not security, not the best military thing, and also it's not this sort of thing is not in the best interests of our soldiers. When you talk to Marines, for example, the Royal Marines for the Navy in England, now they have what is widely regarded as the hardest training anywhere in the world, harder than anything in Israel, harder than anything in the US. When they're sorry guys, but it is. And ask anybody in the American military. Ask anybody in the American military, they'll be like, yeah, the Royal Marines, okay, that is tough. So they get asked about this stuff. They have women fed into their combat units. They know when they do training, and they know also because they've been in combat in Afghanistan with women on the front line. What happens? Men die because men have to carry women over because the women get exhausted and can't deal with it. Women are much more prone to PTSD, and they suffer from it much more acutely when they do get it. They freak out on the front lines. They are incapable of performing their physical function.
So here's also heard that
go ahead.
It causes women, or not women rather, but if they're on the front lines, at least in tests, I've heard that it makes men act in dumb ways where, if it were a man who got shot, they would rationally think, I can't get to him yet.
Yeah, so cohesion and morale are the two measures, for sort of combat units. Both of them plummet when a woman is introduced. Why? Because she starts fucking one of them. And she's having sex with one of the guys, and it causes complications and problems and issues with the others. This is a serious thing. Like, if you want frontline female combat units, the only way to really do it is put all the lesbians in one unit of their own, and keep the heterosexual women out of it. Because
the Dyke Squad, they'd be so fucking hardcore.
They would not do well. They would.
You know what? You could call it like the Dungaree Squad or something. Send in the carpet munchers.
The enemy would fear that, though. I feel like to be killed by the carpet munching squad would. You're not getting those virgins if that happens. That's got to be a great dishonor, right?
You're not getting 72 virgins. You're just gonna get butt fucked forever by some black guy or something. That is it. You're going to end up in does a Muslim have a hell? Yeah, they do. They don't have Satan. They have Iblis. I can't remember.
Syria.
I think there are lots of issues with the women in combat roles. So let's say that let's put it in. Have you seen that Tom Cruise movie, The Edge of Tomorrow, where everybody's in those
I've
fucking
seen all Tom
exos?
Cruise movies. All Tom Cruise movies.
You ever notice that his teeth don't line up? If you ever notice look at his
No,
front
don't
teeth.
tell me that because I'll never be able to see. I'll never be able to unsee it.
Yeah,
No,
do it. They're
No,
fucked.
fuck you, fuck you. Now I'm never gonna be able to unsee it.
They're not like the middle. It's off.
Could you just stop now? Stop. That's enough. Done.
All right,
You have done
End of
that.
Tomorrow, all the soldiers are in those fucking exosuits, which would eliminate, any strength issues. You get a woman in an exosuit, lift a car up, whatever.
Yeah, but it doesn't eliminate reflexes, and women are no good at that either.
Here's what I'm thinking. I feel like we've spent millions of years evolving to be a certain way, and I feel like the men of our species have those of us who are still here descend from a group of men who were badasses, who could defend the tribe, or who could go out into the forest and hunt and kill, and when needed, they could go to war with the other tribe, kill them all, and take their women. On the other hand, I don't feel like women have evolved that same sort of killer instinct, that same sort of fight.
Well,
and
no,
if you're
because most women get the chance to procreate, whereas most men don't, if my understanding is correct.
That's exactly right. So men have to try harder, and Mother Nature knows she's got to. So the politically correct way to explain this is that nature, there's a higher degree of variability in men, right? So sexists will say, well, men are just smarter, faster, bigger, stronger, and better, and many men are. The best men at things are always going to be better than the best women at things, generally speaking. That's broadly true because, for example, of the way that
Marie
IQ
Curie just doesn't stack up with fucking Einstein, does she?
Well,
Another win for us, guys.
well, not in a bad way, but
I mean, she irradiated herself to death. I mean, let's not forget that.
That is a
had
big
the
strike
thesis.
against
She
her.
might have discovered radium, but it killed her too. So
Yeah, no. The way that IQ is distributed, actually, the more we find out about it, the worse the picture gets for women. We used to think that women tend to cluster around the mean, and that men have a sort of shallower distribution curve, meaning that there are more male geniuses, but also more male knuckle draggers. So that's why men fill prisons, but it's also why there's no female Mozart. That situation has changed slightly with some of the more recent data, some of the less politically correct gerrymandered data. And now the suggestion is that there are simply a lot more smart men than there are women. Now, there's a good evolutionary reason for that, and it's exactly what you said. It's men don't get the opportunity to breed as often as women do, so they have to compete more. It's sort of men are sort of where there's greater degree of evolutionary variability, right? So there are lots of men differ more from each other than women do.
I would